Hello everyone, today's lesson is keys and scales. I've had some requests to go a little bit slower with the subject, and since this is the first video in the series that establishes quite a few themes, it's really important that we understand this. So I'm going to take this just a hair slower. So if you've seen the original video, this is going to be a little bit different. In this lesson we are going to learn our sharp keys and scales. We are going to be increasing our musical literacy and give us the first set of tools to understanding how keys and scales work. Oftentimes in classrooms you'll see this represented as the circle of fifths, which I personally never found very helpful when I was learning. So we're going to build them in a list format. Our entire musical world is made up of only 12 unique notes. And those 12 notes are A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp. Write this down and drill the sequence. The faster you have it memorized, the more sense the things I'm about to say are going to make. Each one of these notes are a half step away from each other. So A to A sharp is one half step. A sharp to B is another half step. A to B is what's called a whole step, as two halves make a whole. As we reach the end of the 12 notes written, we start back at the beginning. So after G sharp, we end up back at A in the next octave. If we were to go backwards from A, we would end up at G sharp. There's a link to a study guide in the description, and I strongly suggest you download it to help follow along. Also, for the purposes of this video, we're only speaking in sharps, which raise the sound of a note by one half step, like this. There will be a follow-up video for flats, which lower the sound of a pitch by one half step, like this. You can look for that link in the description. As you can see, there are two notes that don't have sharps, and they've kind of got this pink sticky note here. They are B and E. Although B and E don't have sharps in this list, there is a time when we will be playing a C and calling it a B sharp, and times when we will be playing an F and calling it an E sharp. When the same note has two names, this is called an enharmonic. A key is the tonal center of a piece of music. Its definition reads, in music theory, the key of a piece is the group of pitches or scale that forms the basis of a music composition in Western music. I oftentimes think of it as a landing zone, or a safe spot, or home base. It's going to create a sense of arrival or completion. There's a rich history of how we came to this point that involves multiple cultures coming together, and a whole slew of history lessons that I'm sure would be really interesting to get into one day. But for right now, our scales and our keys are conceptualized in groups of 7 notes. Each one of these 7 notes is what's called an interval. In music theory, an interval is the distance between two pitches. We're going to start with the key of C. Again, there's another long history lesson I'm sure that's very interesting, and one day I'd like to get to as the reason why the key of C is the place everyone starts. But for now, we're going to start in the key of C because it has no sharps. The notes in the key of C are as follows: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Stop here and pause the video. Take some time to really take in the notes of the key of C. This is the foundation of which every other key is found. So say this out loud to yourself. Drill it forwards and backwards. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Until you can do it with some degree of confidence, then I don't suggest moving on. Now that we have the notes of C, it's time for our new key. We find our new key by going to the 5th spot, C, D, E, F, G, which happens to be G in this case. The key of G is only going to change by one note from the key of C. All 7 of these keys are going to have a unique set of 7 notes. So starting from G, we have G, A, B, C, D, E, and here's where it changes. In the 7th spot, the 7th spot gains a sharp, F sharp, G. The next key we're going to learn is D, as it's in the 5th spot of G, and it's only going to change by one note. Starting on D, we have E, we have F sharp, as that was in the previous key, G, A, B, C sharp, as it's in the 7th spot, and then D. Take a moment and see if you can memorize these 3 keys before we even move forward. And please make sure you're writing some of this down, or at least have printed out the study guide that I've included in a link in the description. Now that we're in the key of D, we're going to find its 5th. D, E, F sharp, G, A. Okay, so A is our new key. A is only going to change one note from the key of D, and it's going to be the note that lands in the 7th spot. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp. Here's the 7th spot, G sharp, A. A's 5th is A, B, C sharp, D, E. The key of E. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp. E's 5th is B. The key of B. B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, and then here's that 7th spot, A sharp, B. B's 5th is B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp. F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp. Even though we are playing F, we are calling it E sharp because we have to have all 7 letters accounted for. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we cannot repeat a note. So we couldn't have F and F sharp exist inside the same key, because players need to be able to look at the key and see what is happening to each of the 7 letters associated with that key. It seems confusing now, but it actually clears up a lot of confusion later on. So for right now, the key of F sharp has an E sharp in it, and the next key is going to have a B sharp, because the next key is F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B is C sharp. The key of C sharp. I find this one to be pretty easy because it's the notes in the key of C, but they all have sharps. C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C sharp. Like I mentioned in the previous 2 keys, every key contains 7 notes. All 7 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, must be represented. As you progress, these notes gain sharps, which is why we end up calling C B sharp and E F sharp. You cannot repeat a note, which again is the reason why we can't have an F and an F sharp inside the same key. When a note becomes sharp, we keep it that way as we progress down. There's an order of sharps that I want you to be aware of. It goes F, C, G, D, A, E, B. And there's a phrase associated with it. I'm a big fan of remembering things through little silly sayings. This says, Father Charles goes down and ends battle. There's a distinct formula that I want you to be aware of. It's called the major scale formula. It goes whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Remember, a whole step is going to be 2 sticky notes, and a half step is only going to be 1 sticky note. All Western music is founded on and subject to this formula, so it's best to learn these keys and scales associated, internalize them, and make use of them in our own musical world. Let's plug a key into our major scale formula and see if it works out. I'm going to choose the key of A because I get to choose that sort of thing. Starting on A, we move a whole step to B. From B, we move a whole step to C sharp. From C sharp, we move a half step to D. From D, we move a whole step to E. From E, we move a whole step to F sharp. From F sharp, we move a whole step to G sharp. From G sharp, we move a half step back to A. It's less important about how we build these scales and more important that we take the time to drill them. This major scale formula is a little over people's heads at first, but it does exist, and it is there, and every one of these scales follows that exact formula. I do strongly suggest you double check it for yourself. If you're like me, you don't really trust everything everyone's trying to show you, and that actually ended up being a very good thing for me, because I ended up working twice as hard because I wanted to make sure everything I was reading was right. Memorizing these keys and scales will aid you in your musical literacy. They offer you a meaningful and practical approach to understanding how the musical world operates around you. Even though this is just an explanation from a major understanding, this fundamental concept gives you insight to the vast world of harmony that awaits you. This is how we're going to be building chords. This is how we're going to be building scales. This is how we're going to be building chord progressions. This is how we're going to be playing in modes. It all starts here. What do we do now? You're going to want to drill these. I'm sincerely hoping you took my advice and downloaded the study guide or wrote down these keys as we went. You want to say our musical alphabet forwards and backwards. Write it on scrap paper. Read it out loud. Write it on more scrap paper. Read it out loud again. Say it backwards. Say it forwards. I used flashcards to help me memorize all my keys. I wrote the name of the key on one side and the sequence of notes on the other. I practiced them over and over. I practiced them till they were bent and coffee stained, and then I made new ones. Audio flashcards. I recorded myself saying the keys forwards and backwards and would listen to them as I drove to gigs or to school or to work. I would oftentimes put it on repeat and random and quiz myself. The sooner you learn these, the better off you'll be. This isn't the fun, instantly rewarding portion of your musical journey, but if understanding and musical literacy is your aim, this is absolutely necessary.